So I'm about 2 weeks into my decluttering focus, and I've actually been doing pretty good. I would say, been averaging about one sale per day on Facebook Marketplace. And right now, that's my primary focus because I've been able to slowly but surely move a lot of the larger items that I'm trying to um, get rid of. And I have a few items that I believe are of value. And so I would, I'm going to try to, resell them on Facebook Marketplace. And if I can't move them on Facebook Marketplace, then I'm thinking Whatnot will be my backup. But right now, I'm solely focused on Facebook Marketplace. And what's so crazy about focusing on Facebook Marketplace is I've always used it on and off throughout the years to sell, random items, but nothing to the volume in which I'm using it to sell on this time around. The platform has either drastically improved, or because of the state of the economy we're in, maybe more people are looking to Facebook Marketplace to find things, um, for a bargain. And or it might be a mixture of both. But in either event, it's working out pretty good for me so far. And today I listed a couple of things um on the marketplace, and all electronics, and um like some computer monitors and some other peripherals. And one of the items, like 2, maybe 4 hours, I would say, after I listed it, it was sold. And it just reminded me of how, like, if you need to make some extra cash for whatever reason, like for me, this is just going into my sabbatical fund, my not particularly specifically my FU fund. I guess it could be a part of my FU fund, but this money is going to be, used for minor expenses in relation to um, my move abroad. And so it just reminded me that if you need to, like, make some extra cash for whatever your reason may be, to just start with what you have. you know the type of, where we live in a consumerism, like, is all around us here, in America. And so there's a good chance that you have a bunch of stuff that you don't particularly need or have a use for anymore, that may be of some value. And you can, post that stuff up for, sell on one of the many reselling apps that are available. And, to me, it's a very, you know, low barrier to entry. Where you just start with what you have, take a few pictures, write a description, and boom, see what happens. And for me, it's been working out really, really well. And so I'm gonna probably continue to advocate for it. I'm about 2 weeks in to my 1 month goal of trying to get rid of as much stuff as possible, if not everything. But most likely it won't be everything. But I gave myself about 30 days, I said, to try to get rid of as much of the stuff as possible, particularly the bigger, heavier items that are taking up a lot of space. And I think I'm doing pretty good so far. I wouldn't say that even that 2 weeks I'm halfway through. I'm maybe, but probably not quite halfway through the items that I have. but it's working out so far, and it just reminds me of like how having something so simple. I don't know that I would call it a side hustle, even though it seems like a side hustle because that's my like primary focus, and that's all I've been kind of really focusing on each day is creating, listings, and actually, making sales and, um dropping stuff off and things of that nature. So I mentioned in one of my previous videos, the "So This Is My Life Now" video, that I guess this is kind of almost feels like a part-time job. um without the 9 to 5 structure. Because it's like the only thing that I've been focused on, and I'm actually having a lot of fun, so far, with, creating these listings and, talking to people, here, in my neighborhood, you know. So it's been a pleasant experience so far, and I just hope that it continues to be. Um, and it's just like when you thinking of the bigger picture, when you just kind of think of all of the different ways, the unconventional ways that you can, make money, nowadays. I know, working in the gig economy is a big one. I actually used to DoorDash for a spring and a summer, like pretty consistently a couple of years ago, and I had a ton of fun doing it. I initially started off just doing it like every so often when I was still working full time, but I ended up, once I had quit my job, and I this was the first time I took a gap year off of work, and although I had, money saved and things to, pay my bills and stuff, I ended up door dashing, pretty consistently for about 6 months, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 months, I would say. And it was just the most, you know, enjoyable experience for me because I was able to dictate, when I wanted to work, and, I had it, a nice schedule down packed. I would work, basically just on the weekends, and then, reserve the week for, taking care of other errands and things of that nature. But um Facebook reselling some of my stuff on Facebook Marketplace kind of reminds me of that time, even though it's two completely different, you know, two completely different animals, doing, gig work, working on, like doing something like DoorDash versus just selling stuff that I have at home. Like, there's two completely different things, but ultimately I think the premise is still the same, where it's like, a different way of making money outside of a normal 9 to 5, um, to fund your dreams. You know what I mean? Gig work to me, that's more of a side hustle. I mean, I guess reselling could be a side hustle, especially if you have a large volume of things to sell. But for me, it's just more so about the decluttering. But in the bigger picture, just like, man, this is really crazy how, I could just make a couple, some extra cash just with the stuff that I have, that somebody else has use for, and I don't know, it just blows my mind sometimes, just kind of thinking about it, like, dang, this is really a viable option. And so just being able to kind of, I would say, sell things relatively quickly, it's just further reinforces the reason why I want to have more control. I want to have complete control over, my time, um and financial freedom. This kind of directly plays into that, and I feel like I'm kind of getting a glimpse of what it's like to really just operate within my own, time. Um, of course, I'm not out here making crazy amounts of cash or dough or anything, not at all. But just the simple fact that I can make some extra money, like I kind of think of it in perspective as, okay, I made $50 today or $60 today, you know, that's some groceries, you know what I mean, for, maybe a day or two, you know what I mean? Or that pays my cell phone bill. Like I think of it more so in that perspective as opposed to a whole gaggle of, money and is, a whole, don't compare it to like making a steady paycheck or anything, but I kind of think of it in what that amount could pay for me for that month, you know? And I think that's a really good way to think about it as opposed to having like a total dollar amount, I mean, you could think of it that way too, but it's to me when you think of it like in terms of like simple like bills, like individual bills that you might have, it's less overwhelming. And it gives you, I guess, a better sense of that you're like actually making, accomplishing something, you're making a difference, you know what I mean? Whether it's paying for, like, you might make $50 and you might have, subscriptions, that cost you $50 a month, like, Netflix or whatever, and whatever other things you might have subscriptions to that might equal up to be about $50 a month. Okay, today I just made enough money to pay my subscription services for the next month. Like to me, that's a really great way to kind of think about it, and that's how I go. That's how I go about thinking about it, and I'm kind of keeping track of the things that I'm able to get rid of, and um, the total amount of money that I'm able to gain. But that's just to feed my structure, the structure side of my, brain that needs to be, that needs to be cultivated, just to have some, that type A kind of organizational type situation. But it's working out really good, and I just think that um I don't know. It's just a really good option, for individuals that maybe you don't want to do something that's completely tied to, because even when you do something like gig work, like you have to kind of set aside, you know, s- when you're going to do it, you might only be able to do it 2 days a week for 2 hours or something like that, where you kind of have to squeeze it in because even though you're doing it on your own time, because it's so structured, you have to kind of follow the protocols and all of that stuff for the for the platform in order to do something like DoorDash, as opposed to like reselling on Facebook. You can post some stuff whenever, you may get somebody, may reply, may not, it's just kind of more free, not as it's not predictable, whereas something like DoorDash, okay, you take this dash, you're gonna deliver this thing, and there's money, like you know that the money is gonna come. Whereas with Facebook, it's with selling on Facebook marketplaces, now you don't know if anybody's going to buy whatever. But to me, it seems like the first taste of kind of like entrepreneurship, in a sense of just not having like a steady income. And I know it's just like a far stretch. Again, I'm just, as far as the ideal, like the mindset is what I'm trying to convey. It's just kind of getting used to and being okay with, okay, you not knowing when the next quote unquote paycheck or payday is going to come. You might be putting in work, trying to make the sale or trying to get the client right, but it's ultimately, depends on how well you do, the timing, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of using this experience as a precursor to um you know laying the foundation, setting, the expectation of, working for myself, because I think ultimately that's my goal. Even though it's really nice to to be a W-2 employee, or even, whether part-time or full-time, for the benefits, but kind of breaking away from that and just betting on yourself more, and trusting that you'll figure out how to get, be able to get and afford the same types of benefits that you would have as being a W-2 employee, but just doing it on your own terms. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that today. Just, you know, how, just selling a couple of items that, selling an item that I had literally just listed only a few hours before. It just kind of just was like, yeah, it just kind of gave me that thought, like, okay, this is kind of like, what I've been doing is kind of like a bit entrepreneurial, and it might be a stretch. I'm not trying to make it to be bigger than what it is, but just again with the mindset, and how to approach and think about things in an easier way. So just wanted to share, those were my thoughts for today. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.